Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tradesman Experience. This is the podcast built by tradesmen for tradesmen. My name is Josh, and across the table is, of course, Mr. Nate Newton. Nate, how are you, sir?
Mm-hmm. Busy as shit, man. It's productive as shit. We'll put it that way. But we've had we're still dealing with the winter right now. We have all these projects that bottlenecked, and we're still trying to fight our way through getting a couple of them even off the ground. The problem is that everybody got bottlenecked. So it's like either the concrete guys aren't showing up, or the framers aren't showing up, or everybody's got their own schedules that they're trying to maintain, and it's kind of a clusterfuck. So, but we're getting there. We got a couple of new hires coming in over the next 2 weeks, so we're going to see how that pans out. We are still looking for field leadership. If anybody's interested there, but we're getting it smoothed out by this point. It's just been hectic for the last couple of weeks, and put a lot of stress on the team, put a lot of stress on Matt and myself, and we're getting it all worked out now, but it took some effort.
There's something that you guys continue to get better at, and it's relevant to several discussions I've had lately, and that's the importance of hiring for culture before skill set.
Yeah.
I did some onboarding training with a local client, and I talked about it briefly, I think, in our last podcast. But after that, the owner realized how important it is to hire on culture before skill set. And then in my conversation I had this morning with one of my clients, he's looking for someone. So he asked me a question. He said, "This is the position that I need. How do I find?" Because it's a top position, just like you're talking about, field leader, team leader. And I said, first of all, you have to understand that person is working somewhere. That person is employed.
Right.
Doers are employed. Leaders are employed. They're not sitting at home pushing Indeed somewhere.
At the moment they leave a job, they got another one lined up. Yep.
So what you have to understand is there is someone that loves what they do, but they don't love where they do it.
Where they're at, yep.
Because there's a leadership issue, a culture problem. Maybe they're not being compensated correctly. I advised him, I said, one of your best methods of recruiting high performers is the delivery guy. For your vendors, right? Because you build relationships with them. They talk to everybody. They're kind of like the town barber.
Right. Or bartender.
I'm aging myself again.
When do you ever go to a barber?
Well, I don't anymore, but do it myself. Thank you very much. But you can have those conversations. The second thing I told him, because he was asking me about putting things on Indeed. And so he just happened to be in his office today. We were on the phone, and he pulls up Indeed, and he says, "Man, there's 15 listings right here for people that I'm looking for. There's 15 other companies looking for the same person." I said, "Okay, look at those 15 advertisements or whatever they are." I said, "They all look the same, don't they? They say the same thing. They're offering the same bullshit." Yep. I said, "They all look the same, don't they?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "So don't be that company. You can start your header with something like, if you can't spell welder, do not apply."
Right. Yeah.
Get creative. Come up with
attract some attention with whatever it is you do.
Right. Because what I do know is, yes, that high performer isn't sitting at home at night scrolling through job listings on Indeed, but that high performer might have a fucking argument with his boss, and he's on there at lunchtime.
Yeah, right.
Just seeing what's available. Because high performers, those doers, they're going to be in touch with the market. They know what's going on. They know who's hiring. They want to know. And I said, so it's healthy to be on there, but change that shit up, man.
Right.
Be different. And I said, so those are some opportunities. And dude, I shit you not, by the time we get done with the conversation, he said, I actually think I know a guy. I'm going to message him because this guy's really genuine. And he said, I don't want the reputation that I'm stealing people's guys because of the working relationship that he has. And I said, I respect that. What you have to understand is the position that you want is currently working. So they're coming from someone.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that you're not going to walk into their shop and throw money at them. But what you can do is you start recruiting, putting the word out, create an opportunity for somebody to come to you.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have to pull them from somewhere.
Right.
So my point is back to what you guys are doing really well now is the importance that you put on culture when bringing someone in.
Yep.
And ensuring that they're a good fit. Now, you're getting ready to, maybe for the second time, first or second time, include your team leaders in the onboarding process.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's fucking critical, right? I mean, because we're going to go about it a little differently this time where Matt and I are very hands-off to begin with, and then we will, because, you and I were talking about before we started recording, it's like, why are we going to waste our time if the team is just like, no, they're not going to work? Okay. Who better to onboard them than our fucking team leaders? Like that makes a lot of sense, and then, after they've been there for a couple weeks, then we can step in and, do our last little quality check on them and then move forward from there. So, and it's a lot of it is, how well are people willing to learn? Are they willing to adjust their habits to be a part of this culture and a part of this team? So, we're going to be putting a big emphasis on that.
Yeah. But the return on investment is so much greater when you do. Mm-hmm. Making sure that they are a cultural fit. And the guy I was talking to brought up a really good point because we kind of started the conversation about it with the onboarding process, which is starting in the middle. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I don't want to just bring somebody in, onboard them for 30 days, it not work, and then they leave, and then I do it again. And I said, fair point. Mm-hmm. That's why interviewing and the day of hire is so fucking important. Mm-hmm. That way you're not setting up a gauntlet of onboarding and just trying to spit people out on the other end. Mm-hmm. The interview is where it starts because through the interview process and day of hire process, you're setting expectations for this onboarding. Right. You're not just throwing them into it and going, all right, let's see if this works in 30 days. I'm going to be up your ass about everything.
Right.
You have to set that expectation. So that allowed for a good conversation for him and I, but that's why all that shit is so fucking important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and we've seen it, We've had,
you guys did it wrong.
We did a bunch of times. Pretty much all the times, yeah. But when we did do it properly, that's when we saw the best outcomes, and like our team is killer right now. They're fucking great, but we're severely understaffed, and we don't want to be out there poaching either. But also, if people are not happy where they're at, like we're gonna make your life more fruitful. We'll put it that way. On a cultural scale, on a monetary scale. We don't want clock punchers. That's not. We don't want to work like that. Why would we want you to work like that? Like come to work, enjoy yourself, talk a little bit of shit. Go. I mean, our whole team hangs out after work and drinks beer.
Yeah.
So
I was at your shop yesterday, and after the meeting, I was out in the shop and I was watching Matt and Grant engage because the other guys were all in the field yesterday. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, I get a little bit of envy, especially when I talk to some of my clients and the things that they're doing. It excites me, and I remember what that was like. And the envy comes from not being in that position again. But yesterday I was standing in the shop watching Matt and Grant go over some of the projects, and I'm like, man, this is Grant's castle. Mm-hmm. They're just touching base on some projects. And then as soon as Matt walks out, Grant has full ownership of what goes on.
Right.
So he can turn up the music and he just gets shit done.
Yeah.
And I wish people appreciated the simplicity of that.
Mm-hmm.
And having that sense of ownership in the position and that opportunity where you can be assigned to these things and you just do what you're good at.
Right. Yeah.
I get jealous a little bit about, because I miss those days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I miss being the one that was trusted to do the job no matter what it took.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Oh shit, that was our whole fucking pipeline career, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
my first job that I ever did, I got thrown out into Sacramento in the middle of the fucking heat with a $100,000 welding truck, and the guy was just like, I don't know, figure it out. Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, you know, I fucked up a bunch of stuff along the way in the beginning, and then dude, there was time I remember I hadn't my old boss Zach, he fucking called me one day. He's like, "Hey man, everything okay?" I'm like, "What? Yeah, why?" So, I don't know. I haven't talked to you in like 3 months. I'm like, yeah, well, the checks keep clearing. Why the fuck would I be calling you?
Yeah.
Like,
and I miss that part of it too. Having guys on my team that when you delegate something to, you don't have to worry about it.
mm-hmm.
And there was a lot, and I've said this before, and I want to say it again. I probably have a bad habit of romanticizing my experience as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality was, in that 5-year span, I had more bad days than I had good days.
Mm-hmm.
I really did.
Yeah.
Mostly, and probably entirely because of my immaturity as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Really was a lot of the, especially looking back now through the lens that I have, a lot of my issues were solely connected to my immaturity as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And having those people and having that team where you can say, "Hey, Nate, I need you to go take care of this."
Mm-hmm.
And that's as involved as I need to get.
Mm-hmm.
That shit is priceless,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, that's what they say about leadership or owning a business and that faction. But it's like having the best day of your life and the worst day of your life all within a 15-minute span, you know? And it'll just flop back and forth all day.
So true.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned, and this is our segue into tonight's conversation. One of the things that I discovered, and this wasn't something that I was taught, and I was taught a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Something I discovered was having controlled open conversations with the team. And so I remember specifically, I can probably give you a couple examples, but one, we had a client, all right, and it started actually with my sales team. One of my sales guys came to me and said, "Hey, I've got this client. They're telling me this is exactly what they want. I'm trying to convince them that it's not the best," and going back and forth. So I said, "Don't sell it."
Mm-hmm.
So what did he do? He sold it. True story.
Yeah. Weird.
So he sold it. So okay. Sure as enough, that fucking job went sideways from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And the install crew that was there was getting kind of bastardized.
Mm-hmm.
The client was a complete fucking pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that was going to go wrong was going wrong. And it was creating this toxicity in my culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because for whatever reason, my team didn't think, that they could come talk to me about the problems they were having.
Mm-hmm.
We're in one of our Tuesday morning meetings. And this was in I don't know how many meetings, fucking whatever, 300 team meetings that I had.
Mm-hmm. I
probably only did this twice. Only twice where I wasn't giving a meeting about becoming better.
Mm.
Where this meeting was about fucking business.
Right.
And I started this meeting and I'm like, all right, I keep hearing all of this shit that's going on about this job. And it's creating a lot of gossip. It's creating a lot of toxicity. What the fuck is the problem? And we started with some hesitation, okay, but they started opening up and we started having conversations. And two things I learned is, one, we ended up getting fired by the client.
Oh, shit.
Thankfully.
Isn't that the worst when you're like, thank God we got fired?
But we lost our fucking ass on it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we lost our ass on it. The second thing that I learned is I had never entertained the idea or understood the concept of a war room conversation before. And a war room conversation is one of the best ingredients for a healthy culture. Because, you know, and actually I'm actually wearing it tonight. I've got my DeKalb hat on. The Midwest is large farming. And you have to turn the ground over. You have to turn the dirt over, right? When planting.
Till it.
And that's really what kind of war room conversation is. It gives you the opportunity to turn shit over in a controlled environment, in controlled failure. So that wasn't something that I was taught. That was something that I learned. So the conversation tonight is I kind of want to walk down these different ideas and concepts of what a war room conversation is and why it's so fucking important for your business.
Yeah. Well, it levels the playing field, you know, like especially if you have your, I think you should do this with your entire team every once in a while. But allow them to air their grievances and make it so that you're all fucking human in that room, right? It's not bosses, it's not leaders, it's not fucking this and that. You're all just humans, because a lot of it is like personality clashes too. It's a great place for people to get shit like that out. And if they feel like they're in an environment where they can do that, they're not going to lose their fucking job over it, and that you're going to fucking listen and not just get defensive and fight back. You know, easy it is to just get a mild discrepancy out of the way in that environment.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, you do this and it fucking pisses me off. You're like, huh? Man, you know, that probably pissed me off too.
Yeah.
You know, and as long as you're in there, especially from a standpoint of leadership, you have to realize that you are human. You're stressed the fuck out all the time. And you probably do get snappy with people and you fucking say dumb shit and you're not paying attention to how you're making your crew feel. Then I know that the war room's not all about that, but that is a huge part of the war room, that people feel like they're going to get heard. You know, and it did, and it could get spicy, you know, because could end up motherfucking each other in there. Who knows?
And that is okay.
Yeah.
It creates, God, I can't believe I'm going to say this word, a safe space.
Yeah, shut up.
I know. That's why I call it a war room.
It's a
conversation.
A hall of speaking. Yeah.
It's a
safe space.
It's an octagon. It's a fighting cage.
Right.
Right. It's controlled.
Yeah, but at least you know you get to punch back.
You do. And that's really, so one of the concepts that one you brought up that I want to reiterate is that it's the round table etiquette. Everybody is equal.
Right.
When you're in a war room conversation, everyone is equal. No one should fend for their job, because fending for your job immediately means you broke a non-negotiable. That's not a part of a war. You're not going to have that conversation in there. So people need to be confident in the fact that they can share their perspective as to what they see and what is going on, how they feel, what they think can be solved, but do it in a sense where they're not in fear of judgment or their job. So the other part that you brought up is really important, is it's okay. This is not a fucking kumbaya circle. We're not going to hold hands, find our center, be happy. Right. It is not that kind. I expect you to get excited about something.
Yeah, a little emotional intensity.
Because that proves to me that you're serious about it.
That means you give a fuck.
100%.
Dude, and if you're in there just fucking vanilla
If you're just
pudding,
complaining.
if you're just in there bitching about shit. But with that being said, if it looks like it's complaining, you know, if somebody has a problem with the shit that you're doing, you now have a golden opportunity to explain to them why you're doing what you're doing. right? And instead of it, dude, most of these things don't have to go to fucking blows. You know, you don't have to chew each other the fuck out over it. There's a level of understanding that comes along with it. They're like, hey man, I fucking hate it when you do this. Like, that's really starting to piss me off. And it's like, oh, well, dude, I have to do this because of this, or I have to do this because you do this. And then, you know, you can actually have an intelligent fucking conversation and sort out why things are the way they are. Is that going to be an end all be all? Is that going to fix everything? Fuck no. But at least you guys can get on the same page and understand why the other one's doing whatever it is they're doing, and figure out if you need to change stuff or how you can change stuff.
They might even be okay with the way it is if they understand why it is that way.
Yeah.
There may not be a change necessary. It's just an explanation. The opportunity, again, to someone to, you know, to your point on complaining. It should be an opportunity for someone to vent their concerns, you know, express their concern, again, in a complaining. We're not talking about, just like, bitching and moaning about something, but like, I don't know why the fuck we got to be here 10 minutes before we clock in. Like,
shut the fuck up.
That's not a war room conversation.
We established that before you showed up.
That's not a war room conversation. A war room conversation is something, you know, the complaining aspect might be like, hey, this is something that you said we were going to do 6 months ago, and we still don't have it.
Yeah. Oh, dude, and we've had it in our war room conversations where it's like, hey, dude, I feel like you're not listening when I tell you I need something. And I'm like, I felt like you didn't need it. And they're like, well, we fucking need it. And I'm like, God damn it. Okay. You know, like, and it was something that dumb that it was, especially like if you bring shit to me during the middle of the day when I'm trying to keep my own brain on fucking track to deal with like one task at a time is so fucking hard. And then you come in and tell me you need this fucking $3,000 piece of equipment. I'm like, no, the fuck you don't. We haven't ever needed it before.
Right.
And then I just fucking put it out of my mind, and it's me being neglectful of what the crew needs to do the job effectively and do it safely. And then, you know, during a war room conversation, it was like, dude, I've asked you for this 3 fucking times. And I'm like, why the fuck do we need this? Then they explain why we need it. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
And I'll walk right into the fucking office and order the goddamn thing.
System operation usually comes up in war room conversations as well. As, for example, on the opposite end of that, they say, we keep doing this and it's not working.
Or it's not safe.
And every time we come to you about it, you just say, nope, that's what we have. Just keep implementing it. And there's no buy-in, there's no feedback, there's no conversation about it. So now they have the opportunity to say, look, this doesn't work, and here's why. We had that problem with some of the systems that we not only developed. One, we spent thousands of dollars in this CRM, field service management software. It was for logistics, dispatching, so basically everything Field Pulse does, but it wasn't Field Pulse. And we spent thousands of dollars purchasing it, went through this month-long onboarding process, and when we started implementing it, the fucking technicians hated it. Hated it. Because it did 10 times more the shit than we needed it to do.
Right.
So it complicated every aspect of the program. Were there a couple benefits? Absolutely. But when every single technician in my company came to me and said, we fucking hate this program, I have to take that seriously.
Right.
And I can't come back and say, well, I just dumped 10 grand on this. You know what? 10 grand, or you lose your top 2 or 3 performers. Like, you fucking pick.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and that's one of those things that you can dump all the money you want into something like that, but if people aren't going to use it, you could try and force them, but if they're going to do the bare minimum with it, what the fuck is the point of having it then, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things that I know that specific example isn't a good idea to ask your team what they think about it. Like, you can't go shopping for software with your fucking team, right?
That's right.
Yeah, but like standard equipment, you know, fucking welders, telehandlers, trailers. You know what? I mean, because we're running that right now. We got a fucking gooseneck that only the leadership can fucking tow.
Right.
But then you're towing a line on how much you can actually tow with it. And it's like, having those conversations with your team before you go making these large purchases. And like I said, I know the software one's difficult, but I think when you shop around for stuff like software, you're shopping with other business owners. You're like, hey, what are you guys using? Like, what's working out for you guys?
Yeah.
And having those, they're like, dude, don't. You know what the best answers you're going to get are? They're like, dude, whatever you do, don't get this one.
That's right. Don't buy that one.
Yeah, that's the one we threw 10 grand into, and nobody would fucking use it. So, but that's another good war room type situation. Like, we fucking hate this goddamn drill press that you guys bought. It's a fucking piece of shit. Daryl over there got caught up in it twice last week. We're like, oh shit.
So much communication happens in passing. In a business.
And it sounds like bitching. They can be a legitimate complaint, but in the moment to you, it sounds like they're bitching.
Also, the problem solving aspect happens in passing, and which is why nothing gets done about it. And then it just as simple as it sounds like bitching, now it sounds like a suggestion. And when you have those war room conversations, it's really interesting. This is one of my favorite things about war room conversations is you get to see what people are thinking.
Right.
And you have no idea what they're thinking until they fucking tell you.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's an assumption. And you get somebody that doesn't push back, that follows protocol, implements the systems, does the work. You assume, oh, they're happy. And you invite them to a conversation that they can be honest, and you find out that they're 3 days away from killing everybody in the fucking shop, right? Because every time somebody comes into the shop, they leave a fucking mess, or they don't put their tools back, or they don't
grind their scabs off of the fucking workbench. Oh God, I fucking
right.
I always walk out there and I'm like, who the fuck left this scab? And you see everybody walk away and I'm like, it was one of you. And they're like, we're not dumb enough to throw our teammate under the bus. So,
but you don't understand what really, bothers people or affects people or influences them until they tell you.
Yeah. Well, and you're the boss. You fucking tell them all the time what you don't like.
Absolutely.
They need to be able to air their grievances to you as well.
And if I'm in a war room conversation, and I know that every time you pull something out of my box, you don't fucking put it back. And I may have asked you, hey, Nate, dude, and this kind of goes back to, again, how I was raised by the Graybeards. We're not going to have a very polite conversation about it, but a lot of people aren't confrontational.
Yep.
It's like, hey man, do me a favor, put my tools back, put my tools back, put my tools back. We're in an environment where I can light you up and be like, you touch one more of my fucking tools without putting them back, I'm going to beat you with that tool.
Right.
Well,
and I think that's a really great point that it's, because the way I've always looked at it is war room conversations are for leadership versus the team.
Top down.
Yeah. But it's also the
bottom up.
Yeah, but it's also the team versus the team.
Yes.
If you got your fucking installers got a problem with the fucking dudes fabricating shit in the shop, here's your chance. Fucking let it out. I hate the way you guys primer this shit.
Yeah. Why do you guys do this?
Yeah.
Sales versus install is another one. You keep telling us that we have, you expect us to get this done and we don't have this. Because the perfect culture, you're going to have constant communication up, down, left, and right. But there is no such thing as a perfect culture.
Right.
And one of the things that amazes me about good people is what they will tolerate and still get the job done. You're not going to have to worry about having a lot of war room conversations with an asshole. They fucking complain about everything anyway.
Yeah.
But it's those high performers, those good people that you have on your team that no matter what, will do whatever it takes to get this done for you. You have that mentality of people. They don't want to complain. They don't want to have grievances. They don't want to tell you that they disagree with this or this is how they're feeling about something, especially in the moment. So creating that opportunity for them to really go, look, I'll fucking do whatever you ask me to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like this part.
Right.
Or we need this thing. Or, some of the examples we've already given. The war room conversations that I've been involved in, I have yet to leave one where there was any animosity.
Right. No, guys just got it all out.
You don't leave that room going, fuck Nate.
Yeah.
We'll go see.
Yeah, you had the opportunity to say something. If you didn't, you're a little fucking bitch.
It's your fault anyway.
Yeah.
Go
out to the parking lot and practice falling down. I'll be out there in a minute.
Yeah, with my boot on your throat. Curb stomp. But never leaving those conversations and witnessing that where there's animosity, it gives people permission to clear the air. The other thing, what you have to understand, and you have to be open to, is you cannot criticize the level of the grievance. Meaning, it might not be important to you. That don't fucking matter.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes for every fucking relationship in your life, Yeah, like you're talking to your old lady or something, and she's like, "Fucking, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
What the fuck does it matter?"
Yeah, could you put your clothes in the hamper instead of next to the hamper?
Right. Yeah.
It's not a big deal to you.
Yeah.
That doesn't fucking matter.
You're also cohabitating.
Exactly. It's not a top-down household.
Yeah, and everybody needs to have the ability to listen in these war room conversations. Like, even your team members, they can't scoff at something that the fucking dude that they work next to has a problem with. Like, fuck, Dave's over there being a little bitch, fucking complaining about getting caught up in the drill press. Fucking so what?
Right.
Yeah.
I've lost 2 fingers, Dave. Grow up.
Right.
No, you can't.
Right.
The opportunity, again, for people to share their concerns. Their concerns are going to be based on their perspective and experiences. Intentionally listening, and I'm glad you brought that point up, whether it's the team or leadership or whoever, is being intentional about listening and taking it seriously. If it was serious enough to them to voice it, take it seriously. Again, we're talking about a war room conversation. I'm not talking about a conversation on a fucking Wednesday afternoon where you're like, hey, we need new tires on the truck. Oh, hey, we got to get this. I'm not talking about that shit. I'm talking about things that move the fucking needle in the culture. Those are the types of conversations that the war room is about.
Yeah.
It's behavioral. It's systematic.
It's how we get rid of baggage.
Man. And emotion is baggage. Negative emotion is baggage. And when you have the freedom to express that, and it's not seen as complaining, it's not viewed as negativity, it isn't a controlled failure environment where it's not going to intoxicate something, people will open up.
Shit, I mean, we've seen it, and some of the most timid and shy people they'll get to a point where they're like, hey, I got something.
They may not start the meeting.
Yeah, they won't start, but once everybody else starts letting it fly, they're like, okay, hey, today's the day. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of my point earlier, those are the people that'll shock you because you don't think that they have any complaints.
Yeah. You're like, that dude's happy all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, but he's like burying fucking hatred and discontent against you on the inside.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to be a problem. Right. But the war room is your place to be a fucking problem.
Yeah, it really is. You can use the war room conversations. You can literally schedule them out. And I think it's important to have that full team war room once or twice a year, where everybody is involved. Because when I say full team, I mean, if it's you and one other person, there's going to be a lot of conversations that go on. If you have 12 people in your team, there's a pretty big disconnect between you and the greenhorn. You're not spending a lot of time with that person because they don't move the needle the 80%.
Right.
So you're not really going to be engaged with what their grievances are, but they have a team leader that they might talk to. Treating everyone as an equal in having those conversations once or twice a year is going to be very helpful because it's going to empower people. You also need to be having leadership war room where, and you can look at them a couple different ways. One is if you have an operations team, the operations team needs to be meeting once a month and really discussing what went right, what went wrong, what do we need to improve, what do we need to eliminate. And those open conversations need to be happening at least once a month about operations.
Right.
And again, cultivating that with your leaders. There needs to be a leadership meeting, right? Because your leadership meeting and your operations meeting may not include the same people.
Yeah, I mean, because like Matt and I got away from that for a while because, I mean, we are leadership, but we're also owners, right? But we have to treat our positions like we are leaders, right? So we had gotten away from it and some shit got a little weird. And so now it's like, okay, every Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock or 7:30 after we get the crews moving, I don't give a fuck what is going on. We're scheduling around that. That is going to happen. It's going to happen every fucking week. We're not getting away from that. I don't give a fuck what you think you have to go do. This is the most important thing we need to do.
So here's what I love about that example is because there's three opportunities here. And trust me, I'm not a death by meeting kind of person. If you're going to have structured meetings, there needs to be an agenda, there needs to be a time cap, and it needs to be efficient. But take you and Matt. There's an ownership meeting that needs to happen. Okay? That's one. There is a leadership meeting that needs to happen. And currently, that's you, Matt, Grant, and Nick. That needs to happen. There's an operations meeting that you may or may not need to be in.
Right.
I mean, that the operations meeting is going to be currently Nick, Grant, and Matt. So it may not involve all of the same people every time, but you're also going to be talking about things, in the ownership meeting that you're not going to discuss in a leadership meeting. And that's okay. But if you're not intentional about having those, and this is probably one of, I don't know if it's a good habit or a bad habit, but for me, if I have a meeting, I kind of treat it like a war room conversation. Just because I want to be open, I want to be honest.
Because you're a dick, Josh.
I'm a dick. And I'm like, what do we need to do? Like, I don't want to have a conversation about operations and not have a leadership conversation where, something is wrong with leadership that you're afraid to bring up in operations.
Well, and I think a great point to this is when you have these meetings, because we've done it before where the meetings just go round and round in circles week by week, right? You need to be taking fucking notes on the things that you're supposed to be doing because everything during all those meetings is like, I don't know, I got to find out about that or I got to check into that. So you need to be taking notes on what your partner says that they're going to fucking take care of. And on that next meeting, all right, what did we figure out? Where are we?
Yeah, so great point. You want to set expectations when you leave those conversations, especially the war room. You need to commit. You need to say, all right, I can handle this. I can have this done in the next 30 days. And you need to handle it because now you're accountable to that person or to that whole team about whatever was said. And if you can't just, it's not a venting session where you're not trying to solve problems.
Right.
It'll start out sounding like complaining. It'll morph into venting. It'll then change into open conversation. But if you don't conclude it with commitment, then it's just a bitch fest.
Right. And if you're doing these things regularly and you're doing them intentionally, they could take 15 minutes. They could take half an hour.
Point.
Like I know we talk, as we're going through it, it's like, well, like that war room meeting with the whole team, that's an hour meeting, right? It should be. But like these fucking operational meetings, the owners meeting should go a little bit longer, but operations meeting, leaderships meetings, if you guys do them effectively and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. We talked about this and this last week. Where are we at with all that? Cool. Everything's sorted out. This is what we're talking about this week. You can do that in 15. You guys don't even have to sit down for that fucking meeting. You could be standing up.
Yep. Because, and kind of to break off into another is your weekly team meeting. right? One thing, and I said it earlier, was, probably twice that I used the team meeting to talk about business. My team meetings were about culture, about growth, not company growth, person growth, people growth, individual growth, better communication. We didn't talk a lot about system implementation in a Tuesday morning meeting. We would watch a TED Talk video. We would listen to a podcast. We would say, man, what did you get out of that? Is there something that we can start doing differently? I remembered some of the most favored topics or videos or whatever that we shared. One was the Mel Robbins' TED Talk. And that was early in her career. Tony Robbins' TED Talk, which he was on the first ever TED Talk.
Oh, really?
He was one of the 6 presenters of the first ever TED Talk. The team loved that one. At that point in time, I was heavily involved with EntreLeadership, Dave Ramsey's organization. So we would watch those or listen to parts of podcasts. But I would find things that were relevant to what was going on. And it might be something that's relevant to culture. It might be something that's relevant to growth. But I tried to make sure it was relevant and relatable. I didn't use that time to talk about sales projections, labor percentages, truck inspections. I didn't use it to talk about business. I used it to talk about ways that we can work better together. Because I can have a conversation with my install coordinator about the operations of the install department. I can have a conversation with my service coordinator about the operations of the service department. I don't need to have all of those conversations all of the time with everybody.
Right.
It goes back to kind of the leadership meeting or operations meeting. They need to be talking to their team, and they need to be talking to their team weekly. Again, a 15-minute conversation. Put it on the calendar. I'll never fucking get pissed if I look at the calendar and go, why the fuck is every installer in the shop and it's still 8:30? Oh, it's on the calendar. They're doing a weekly team huddle, a weekly team meeting about things. Okay, I know that. Good. I'm not going to crawl up your ass for wanting to do better.
Right.
Take the time, schedule it, be efficient, and then move the fuck on. But now I know when I have a conversation with my team leader, they're going to say, hey, these are some of the things that we're dealing with that we think that can be different. This is information we're not getting from the sales department, so on and so forth. And so you have all of these kind of micro conversations throughout, and you can compound those into big war room conversations.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, even just meetings in general, when it comes to construction, they're so frowned upon. Like the guy's like, I'm out here to fucking swing a hammer, not talk about my feelings. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that's, definitely a graybeard mentality when it comes to it. But the amount of shit you get out of the way with a structured meeting and, even just a 15-minute one, like you can catch a lot of dumb shit, and see stuff coming or, I feel like it's a very underutilized tool when it comes to the trades. People think meetings, they think safety meetings, or
Right.
they think reprimanding meetings or something like that. But it's like, if you're using meetings to be productive and you're efficient about it, you just go in there, get it done, and get the fuck out of the way, dude, it alleviates a lot of problems.
If you don't have a culture building meeting, I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to tell you have to do these things. But if you have an operations meeting weekly and we're not going to talk about our feelings, it's like, again, I don't fucking care. It's not, your company is not my company. My company, I will tell you, I was 100% set on 2 primary ingredients in my business: culture and leadership. Every fucking decision I made in that company was to support culture and leadership. But that was my company.
Right.
It was how I ran it. That was what I wanted to build. If you are an operations person and operations driven, then have those conversations fucking weekly. And because you can keep your finger on the pulse and you know when the pulse changes. Because everything's in real time right now and you're not forced to be reactive to a situation. God forbid it be a catastrophic one. And then you can ask questions of, of, okay, well, you don't like this. What do you think we need to do differently?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're brainstorming. Now you're getting buy-in. Now you're generating new ideas of how to make this better.
Mm-hmm.
Why? It's not my fucking job to come up with every idea of how to make this place better.
Right. Yeah.
That's nonsense.
Yeah. Especially when you're not the one out there doing the fucking work.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know what better looks like?
That is a great question. Mm-hmm. You present or create opportunities for those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the operational meetings, leadership meetings, ownership meetings, department meetings, whatever, those need to be consistent. They need to be structured. They need to have agendas. But open up the floor for these large war room conversations. Mm-hmm. And, and I say war room like everyone's going to be negative or intense. That's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's about creating opportunity for people to tell you the fucking truth
mm-hmm.
as they perceive it.
Right.
This is how I feel. This is what I think. This is what's not going on. So it's just really, really important in a culture, especially you as a leader, to open this up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I used, the Arthur's Round Table because that was the ideology behind the Round Table. Everyone was equal.
Mm-hmm.
Equal. The king was an equal at that table.
Yeah.
That's what you're creating. Mm-hmm. You're creating that.
If you're gonna do this, please, for the love of God, listen to your fucking greenhorn. There's a lot of people that are gonna dismiss that. That they don't have the skin in the game yet that everybody else does, to where they think everybody else is gonna feel a little more comfortable doing it. But dude, if you got a greenhorn in there that's only been in there for a couple weeks, and they're like, "Well, I might have an idea," and dude. Mm-hmm. That what a terrifying place to be in as a fucking greenhorn, right? You're like trying to test the waters on something like that. But if you have a greenhorn in on one of those meetings, be like, "Hey, man, what's your number one gripe about this place?" Mm-hmm. There's no Pepsi in the vending machine,
right?
Whatever, it's something. You got them to say something, something stupid, but
yeah. Nate takes up 2 parking spaces.
Sure do.
Okay,
yeah, sit in 2 chairs too.
Is that an opportunity for a fat joke? I don't know.
It was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want the opportunity to go by, mm-hmm. even though I didn't capitalize fully. But no, anyway, just to kind of conclude this up, like giving your team permission to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And again, their version of honest.
Yeah. It's not them telling you what you want to hear.
No.
Most of this stuff as a leader, as an owner, as you're hearing the stuff going on, you're going to be like, God fucking damn it. But you have to understand that that's the heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? Mm-hmm. That's your burden of leadership, is that you have to take into effect how other people think and feel about shit.
Yeah.
And this is
included.
Yeah. And that's a great way to condense all this shit into one fucking place, right?
You included. When I had war room conversations where the primary topic was about me
mm-hmm.
and the shit I wasn't fucking doing right, like, it wasn't fun.
Right.
It's not something that you want to hear mm-hmm. or you want to do. But I never left a conversation like that thinking that, well, I'm not fucking changing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
You'll leave that conversation really enlightened about who you really are
mm-hmm.
and how far or close that is to who you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
And now you get to bridge that gap.
Yep.
And man, what a brilliant opportunity as a leader that can be.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to lay it out for you in a simple way.
Mm-hmm.
All you got to do is make these corrections and it's solved.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
The toolbox. Okay. War Room Conversations is one of the videos
mm-hmm.
in the toolbox. And before you and I started recording, I was scrolling because I couldn't remember if we'd talked about this specifically. I know we've brought it up and we hadn't, so here we are. But if this is something that you want to revisit or condense from an hour to 12 minutes,
mm-hmm.
the toolbox has a War Room Conversation video in it.
Fucking A.
It's there's also a shit ton of other videos in there, but
mm-hmm.
But it is an opportunity for companies to share, like, hey, how does this work? What does this sound like? How can we go about it? There's a video in the toolbox. So people need to sign up for the toolbox because it's a complete video resource for them and their company. And I appreciate it because I think every client that I have also has the toolbox. And today is a great example. The conversation I gave you earlier about onboarding and how we started kind of in the middle of the process. When I asked him, I said, you do have the toolbox, right? He said, yeah. I said, interviewing, hiring, and onboarding is in the toolbox. And he said, oh, fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. I said, so you can revisit this entire conversation by watching those 3 videos. Mm-hmm. You've got some greenhorns coming up. Mm-hmm. You sharing that with your team.
Yep.
And saying, hey, this is how we're going to onboard.
It's going to be this Monday's meeting.
Yep. And sharing that. So it's a good resource for people to continue to, engage with their team, learn how to hire properly. It's a hell of a toolkit for a leader. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you're the owner. It's a great toolkit for a leader. Mm-hmm. So
fucking A.
I'm done. Are you done?
I need to eat.
Yeah, let's get the hell out of here.
Yep.
You can find Nate on Instagram at NateNewton87. I am on Instagram at The Tradesman Experience. Email is thetradesmanexperience@gmail.com. Website's thetradesmanexperience.com. And the YouTube channel is The Tradesman Experience. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Get out there, get shit done. Be proud to be a tradesman. See ya.